Hey guys, and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and we're again joined by Derek Bittner to discuss all the latest news for Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS from this past week. So let's get right into it. Alright Derek, well this week was kind of interesting in that there were some big announcements, but they didn't really show much of them, and some of them were kind of peculiar. So I guess let's just go and start off with Monday's screenshot, which shows off a chubby version of Little Mac, which apparently is from, this is a model taken from Captain Rainbow, which is a Japanese-only game, which actually brought together a bunch of, like, old-school, Nintendo protagonists and antagonists that hadn't been seen for a while. And in Little Mac's case, he clearly became out of shape.
Yeah.
So this is just a trophy. Again, just another look at an unlockable from the game.
Pretty much, but there's some interesting subtext here that you could read into and maybe see come out of, but it's hard to say. For one, if they're showcasing Chubby Little Mac, does that mean that we might see Captain Rainbow as in some capacity as well? I mean, that was a Japan-only game, and I'm not quite sure how well that did in Japan.
Right.
But if we're looking for new characters, Captain Rainbow could be one and be different, to say the least.
It's definitely possible. I mean, they are running out of kind of like super off-the-wall, games on which to base characters on. You've already got Ice Climbers, Game & Watch. So I could see them, having a Captain Rainbow character, if not Captain Rainbow himself, in here. But they've also had trophies for games before, completely unrelated to Smash Brothers.
Yeah, and if I was a betting man, I'd say that was just the case here. Be curious to see if we get the variation, like wacky variations on some of the other characters, because it's interesting that they have Little Mac in here, and okay, let's make fun of him by having his chubby version in here.
I personally don't think this is indicative of anything beyond the trophy, but you never know with Smash Brothers. So, but it is cool to see Captain Rainbow get some love, particularly as that game is not well known outside of Japan.
No.
Alright, moving on to Tuesday's screenshot, perhaps maybe the best one or most interesting one of the week. This one shows off a new arena for the 3DS, and it's the Prism Tower, or rather it's Lumiose City, and you can see Prism Tower rising above it. And Sakurai says that up until a few seconds ago, the fighters are brawling on top of that tower. No, really. So, the screenshot itself doesn't, as far as I can tell, doesn't show, it appears to be basically a background. But with Sakurai's comments, it sounds like the battle takes place on top of the tower itself. What's your takeaway from this?
It was a very odd statement, because I'm looking at that as okay, up until a few seconds ago, the fighters were brawling on top of the tower. Great. Where are they now? There's no platform. It's not like some of the other stages where they're on a moving platform and they go from place to place to place. We don't see that here, so that makes me think that it's going to be the fighting is going to take place on these landmarks, and it seems like, based on the detailing we can see from the picture, the main fighting arenas will probably be the Prism Tower and also the plazas that surround it, and you can see them lit up around there.
That's right, they do stand out.
Yeah, everything else is just very basic. I mean, it looks really cool, especially at night. It's kind of hard to get a gauge on just what kind of stage this is going to take the form of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, even though we don't see any platforms at all, I'm leaning toward the fact that it has to be a traveling stage, because, like Mario Sunshine and Stelfino Plaza, because, if we take his comments at face value, that implies that they will be moving throughout this battle. Unless the match just ended or something, which wouldn't make, I don't know, I think that seems to be kind of a stretch. And it would make sense, that there is such a focus on the tower, then you have the different plazas, as you mentioned. So maybe there could be different, well, how did those plazas work in the game? Or
they were just sort of different plazas. They were sort of more like landmarks. They didn't really do anything. They were just sort of there to keep you oriented within the city. And there's nothing, it's not like with Mario Sunshine or even the new Zelda traveling stage. There's nothing noteworthy about these other places.
Right.
So it really makes me think that it won't be a traveling stage. I'm almost wondering if it's going to end up being something more along the lines of maybe a different take on like Newport City or Saffron City from the original Smash Brothers, where the buildings themselves are the platforms. But it's so different because, well, the Prism Tower is not really conducive to that type of fighting. So it's really difficult to wrap my head around exactly how this stage is going to work.
Well, I mean, your idea is still possible if we take if this is all just the background. You know, if maybe this isn't the arena at all, and you're actually fighting far in front of it on buildings, as you mentioned. I mean, you can see skyscrapers in the background, so it's entirely possible there's some behind the camera that we can't see that you're battling on as well. But I mean, the thing that throws a wrench in all this is, you know, just Sakurai's comment, which does imply they were battling atop of that tower. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like it has to take place there, even though, like, it's hard to tell from the screenshot. I don't know if it's just because they're so far away, but that tower doesn't look quite big or detailed enough to actually be an arena on top. But
it's really hard to say. I don't think there's an arena on top of there. I think you just sort of go back and forth. It's, like I said, I'm having a really difficult time. I mean, that's also the place, the location of the city's gym as well. So I'm not sure if even that'll come into play, where all these electric type Pokemon will show up and maybe do damage. I don't know. Like once again, I'm thinking of Saffron City, how the random Pokemon would pop out of the door.
Yeah, only other idea I have is maybe it's a flying stage where, you know, like the traveling stage, maybe the platform just flies like above the tower and you're actually fighting on the platform itself. You know, never actually go to the tower. Maybe it's just like, you know, takes you on a tour of the level or of the city, basically. Very difficult
to say, but I mean, it's cool that it's in there, but I really just want to know more about it.
Yeah, no, I think it looks cool, and I am just glad to see a non-Pokemon Stadium level appear here that's not freaking Poke Floats.
Yeah.
Which might be my least favorite level of any Smash Brothers game. Alright, moving on to Wednesday's screenshot, we get a look at Zelda's Din's Fire move, which apparently works just as before, although according to Sakurai, its core is now stronger, which I think is awesome, because that was one of my favorite moves to use as Zelda. Like, I would just troll people from across the map, you know, using her, yeah, this is her side B, and you can, if you got good at, you know, controlling that thing, you could really just ruin some people's lives. So, I'm okay with the fact it's stronger, but I wonder if it might make it less balanced, because it already was such a great weapon to use against a lot of people, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I mainly use it for chip damage. I mean, it would nice to be throwing people off their game a little bit by hitting them with it, especially when you're in multiplayer matches.
Right.
But I do kind of like that. What we're seeing here is another example of the subtle changes that the former Smash characters are getting, because it's cool that it's now more powerful in its core, which means it's going to be less powerful outside. So you got to be really exact, which is where the skill comes in for that. And also, you want to be far away for this, and because the farther it goes, the more powerful it'll be.
Right.
So it really seems like a good balance between powering it up but also making it more skill based. I kind of like it, and apparently, I mean, you need to hit foes. It also says you need to hit foes at its core if you want to make them fall, which means, you know, it definitely requires that skill in order to get it exactly where you need it to be.
Oh, right. So even though the core is stronger, maybe the splash damage, for lack of a better term, is being lowered. So I mean, maybe you have to be more precise with it this time. Maybe you really want to inflict damage. All right, moving on to Thursday's screenshot, we get a look at the redesigned motion sensor bomb. As far as we can tell, you know, going off Sakurai's comments, it looks and sounds like it's going to function just as it did before, where you can throw it at a surface, it'll stick to it, and then if someone gets close to it, it detonates. You know, so the only thing to take away from this is it's been heavily redesigned. But this time it looks like some kind of weird sci-fi device.
I mean, I think it kind of looks cool. It's kind of interesting that this is the first, like, Smash-specific item that does not have the Smash branding on it.
Yeah, I noticed the exact same thing, but it could be on the underside. Maybe.
Could be.
Maybe, which wouldn't make any sense because it always sticks via its underside. But maybe if you pause it while it's in midair, you can see it.
It could be. Now, the question I had with this, and I'm not sure if you'll know or not, but is this thing even tinier than before?
Oh, I mean, that's a good one. It does look really dinky, but it's also being compared to Donkey Kong, which is one of the biggest characters.
True.
Yeah, even though it's small, it almost looks like it stands out more than it has in past games. Like in the original Smash Brothers, it was just a small gray thing that, blended in with the environment. And then it did get more colors later on. But also, it always had a pretty low profile. If anything, this time it actually looks like a brighter, more three-dimensional version than the one in Brawl, which was pink, and it's now red here. So it almost to me looks like it might stand out more, especially in this Pikmin arena where it's on a gray surface. It just really stands out. So I do wonder if it just might be easier to see than the past games. But I'll be honest, I haven't used I haven't used the motion sensor in so long, aside from playing in 64. But I usually kept the items turned off in Brawl just because I hated the item selection. I usually love items in those games, but I just hated Brawl's items. I usually kept them off. So I barely remember, how noticeable it was in that game.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played Smash, in any real capacity. But I remember always enjoying the motion sensor bomb. It was fun just laying that trap and hoping nobody will notice, and then it'll eventually step on it, or being afraid it's there and somebody knocks you back and you fall right into it. It's a fun little item. It's great to see it back, and once again, just keeping up the redesign.
Okay, well, moving on to the final screenshot of the week, we have what appears to be another brand new arena for the 3DS. Now, at first, I had no idea what this is from, but the consensus online seems to be that's from Tomodachi Collection, which is a Japanese-only game. I believe it is coming to the States now, I think.
It's rumored to come to the States. Apparently, it's a little harder to bring over because there's a lot of Japanese subtext there. There's a lot of stuff specifically for Japan, and the way the characters actually spoke are it's sort of like a muffled version of Japanese.
Okay.
So there's a lot of localization and translation that needs to be done. So who knows how long it'll be if it actually does come out here. Otherwise, I mean, it's another life simulation game. It's incredibly popular in Japan, apparently. I mean, it sold gangbusters. But even though it's only been 2 games, but this is not my type of game at all. Yeah,
I was looking at a trailer for it before this, and I have zero interest in it. It looks like it looks like a duller Animal Crossing. But with all that being said, I do wonder how it's going to play. Here we just see, a single room, and with a pretty, it's not even that big. We can see all the walls and even the ceiling. So I have a couple thoughts on this. One, I think it might be like Luigi's Mansion in Brawl, where you have different rooms inside a larger house, and you can freely jump between them. So maybe there's just one room of multiple in the house. But another idea I had is, what if it's, before, this is a Mii-based arena. This game uses Miis, and we see one arena before that used Miis as well, being the one based on Street Pass. So I wonder if this actually might be the same arena, and it actually might just cycle through these different Mii-style, different Mii-themed game arenas.
I was wondering about that myself. I mean, it definitely seems like the most obvious answer. On the other hand, there is potential for a very different arena if it is more like the room-based aspect of the Luigi's Mansion level from Brawl, because as you were talking about that, I remember from the trailer that we watched, it was more of a apartment complex. So I'm just imagining a much bigger Luigi's Mansion level. We're going from room to room to room to room, and I think that could be kind of fun in a way. But part of me thinks that it's definitely going to just be here's all of the Mii-based things that we have, and it sort of cycles through. Now, how it cycles through, I have no idea. It could be a very interesting level, but I think there's also just an innate sense of disappointment with it, mainly because so many people, including myself, you, a ton of other people, really thought this was going to be the day we were going to get Yoshi announced, and a lot of people want to see him back. I mean, he was one of the originals. He has a fun style. Everybody loves him. And it seemed like a perfect day to do it, since this was also the release of Yoshi's New Island. And they did the same thing with Diddy Kong when Tropical Freeze was released. So maybe they're holding off until the Japanese release of Yoshi's New Island, but we don't even know the confirmed date of that yet. So I don't know what's going on with Yoshi, but it's very interesting that they decided not to show him this week.
Yeah, that really surprised me. I was up until 2 a.m. my time after flying back from Washington, D.C. the day before. So I was on basically 5 a.m. my time, waiting for them to show off Yoshi, and it didn't happen because they did do that with previous characters. So yeah, I don't know when they're going to show him off. Hopefully soon, because I do like using him, and we know he's going to be in the game. Alright, well, I think that wraps up our Smash Brothers discussion. Thanks guys for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to follow us and like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to it in the description below. It's a good way to keep up to date with everything we post. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on Smash Brothers Wii U and 3DS and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.